Sky and Earthwatch weathered the storm, broadcast for July 26, 2019, approximately 1:38 Chicago time. Rare event today as we open up the radar of the United States and hardly see any electrical storms whatsoever, except for poor little Florida down there. Has some reds and yellows, and it looks like they're going to be getting rain for the next 3 days, according to computer projections, computer guesses from tonight into Sunday, and that will also include all the Gulf coastal areas, southern Mobile, Alabama, southern Mississippi, Louisiana, and the Gulf Coast region of Texas. Not looking good. It doesn't look like it's going to be extreme weather, not tornadoes or extreme hail, but it looks like what the models are predicting is just plain old rain for 2.5 days. But we'll get into that in a few minutes here after we look at a couple other things. The only other real storm or rain activity that's really showing up on radar right now is just these kind of weak looking things over here in southern Idaho, northern Utah, and across the top of Nevada. This green over here, the green that you're seeing in New Mexico there on this map here, and into Utah right over there, those are, I believe those are have to do with flooding. So let's click on them and take a look. Yeah, flash flood watch for middle of New Mexico there, actually from central New Mexico, kind of Arizona border, Silver City, up to north, up to Gallup, and then across to Albuquerque, and then diagonally across up to the northeast part of the state, also extending up into southern Colorado, front of the mountain range. Kind of they had some flood activity there earlier this spring, up to Pueblo, just north of Pagosa Springs also, and then into Utah, also Provo, up to Salt Lake City, and south down to Richfield, Monroe. And there you can see those little bits of isolated thunderstorm activity. Let's click on that and make sure we know what we're talking about. Flash flood watch remain in effect for 9 more hours. Moving back towards the center of the country, we still have these red areas in the Mississippi River Valley flooding. Still, I mean, that's been ongoing. I would call that at this point, after months and months of being in flood stages, I would call that climate change. I believe there's also some flash flood warnings down here in Florida. Yeah, flash flood warning for 2 days. And like I said, it looks like the computer models are expecting rain for the next 2 days. So that's Bloomingdale, Florida, and also a little patch down here in on I-75 near Sun City Center. You can see there some red thunderstorm activity popping up. Also in Bethany, Florida. So those are some things to be aware of if you're traveling I-75 in that area. Moving west across the Gulf states, coastline, Louisiana also. Flood warnings on the coast there. Over here by I-10, Jennings, Louisiana. Zooming back out, otherwise looks pretty clear. But as we'll see when we look at the forecast in a few minutes here, this area is expected to get rain, a lot of rain for the next couple days. So that's going to be definitely an area of alert once again. Other than that, it's unusual to see the United States is clear of storm activity and rain. It's kind of refreshing, actually. Other than that, earthquake activity last week, I believe, or the last 24 hours, these are only 4.5 magnitude or greater. There's a little bit near Oklahoma, and the China Lakes Naval Base continues to see seismic quake activity here near Ridgecrest. I believe it's Ridgecrest, California, where they had the big one a couple weeks ago. Let's click on that and see what it is. The red one is a 4.7 magnitude, which is pretty good. 18 kilometers east of Little Lake, California. So kilometers are some type of measurement that's kind of similar to a mile. I'm just trying to be funny because, miles, kilometers. So let's take a look at some interesting news stories, and then we'll jump to the 3-day forecast, the weekend forecast for the United States. This is an article a friend sent me from Channel 3000 News covering a story out of south central Wisconsin. Madison, Wisconsin is an isthmus between two lakes, and as many communities over the last 2 years, they're seeing water levels rising. So the title, Why Dane County Says Lowering Lake Levels Won't Help Stop Flooding. Well, I would tend to guess that if the government could believe, or they believe they could lower lake levels, that they would. But basically the angle of this story is people are concerned about the water levels, and they want the government to step in. I'd say that's a bad plan for the future. I would say, rather than depending on the government or waiting for the government, that each person should take individual responsibility for their welfare, their well-being, their protection, and their future. Research, look at trends, and make educated conclusions and prepare.
Water level's gone up so much, Topher decided to sell his motorboat. He can't get it out of the bay anymore.
If you want to get out to the larger part of the lake, you can't really go under the main bridge anymore because the water's so high.
Even his kayak.
So, basically the backstory is 2 years ago you could get under that bridge, and the last 2 years you haven't been able to. Basically the water levels rose. They had flooding like many places have been having throughout the Midwest. And then the water levels just never went back down. And, that's the trend that we're seeing. So, it kind of reminds me of another story that kind of contributes to the evidence towards this trend. But before we look at that, let's look at a few more of their headlines here from the Channel 3000 News. Basically, August 22, 2018, you start seeing news stories about flooding. Water levels are expected to increase. Great Lakes water levels surge. Some records broken. And again, we're living in the age of I've never seen this before, or unprecedented or historic. You can browse around news stations every day and hear people saying, I've never seen this before. I lived here all my life and I've never seen this before. Residents stressed, historic Dane County flooding, saving homes from increasing water levels. High lake levels are new normal. That's from June 21, 2018. A race against time as lake waters rise. It goes on and on. That's the direction things are going in. Unless something happens to change that direction, we're going to see ebb and flow in that direction. And that's when you really need to start looking at why, which isn't always easy, but anyone with an internet connection can do enough research to find some theories, at least, or some probable reasons why things are going in this direction, and it's out there. You can find it. And then after that step, the next step is to create a logical and sane plan. A logical and sane plan, not a logical insane plan. To cope, to plan, to thrive, to prosper in this new or the next phase of weather and climate. This morning I woke up and it was sunny. I went outside and it started raining, so the climate changed. We don't really have any kind of idea really in our limited experience and time, and our limited 200 years of weather records, to really be able to establish what is the climate. But most of us can kind of see signs around us, and if we're willing to have our eyes open and listen and watch, we can be smart enough to create a plan of action. Here's from Smithsonian Magazine. Flood creates 10-mile-long lake in Death Valley. Death Valley, one of the hottest, driest places on Earth, and all of a sudden a lake spontaneously occurs there. More articles. Newsweek, huge lake appears in Death Valley. That's from March 14, 2019. I know that the Weather Channel also went out there and took some pictures. Giant lake has appeared. Rare 10-mile-long lake forms in Death Valley. So, when you see lakes starting to appear where there didn't used to be a lake, it's time to. That's a good sign of something that might be changing, a new trend happening. So let's get on to the 3-day forecast, and we'll see some concerning amounts or duration of rain in certain areas. Looking at the forecast for the weekend, Friday night here, this is the GFS, and still, no thunderstorms, no reds, just rain. Here's the rain I mentioned earlier down here in Florida, pretty thick, but no really high yellows and reds. Up here in Carolinas, a little bit, Western Carolinas, New Hampshire, New York, up here, and northern Wisconsin, south central Minnesota up to southeastern Minnesota, or central eastern Minnesota, I should say. Little blob there in Illinois. So this is Friday night. Four Corner states there, getting a little bit of rain, and right where they had that flood watch, and southern Nevada, southwestern California, and up here northern California, western Oregon. So let's take a look at the next time frame. Here we are later in the Friday night, still kind of looking the same. This rain down here gets a little thicker. Progressing to the Saturday overnight, still Florida getting some heavy rain, still in the Carolinas there. Northern Wisconsin still in some rain. Illinois still having some rain. And in the Four Corners area, that's starting to look like the computer is predicting that it's going to start to develop a little bit more. You can see there's some of those numbers and pressure systems there. I think, pretty sure that means something. Saturday morning, it actually looks like Florida's, it's now, this is a little later. I looked at this before I started this video, and now looking at it right now at approximately, what is it, 4:15 p.m. Chicago time, the predictive model is changing. So now the computer is showing that Florida's clearing, which is good, because then maybe they won't have those flooding issues. Meanwhile, Saturday morning, Wisconsin getting pretty much covered with rain there, and down into Nebraska, and the Four Corner states still have a system over them. Now I believe this is Saturday afternoon. The computer is predicting that the system over the Four Corner states is going to break up a little bit more. Some spotty stuff through here. Wisconsin, no, that's not Wisconsin. Now Michigan's getting it, and Florida. Well, I guess, you know, they can't really decide what's going to happen down here with Florida. But this looks a lot better, because earlier today, the model was showing that all of this was going to get rain for 3 days. And now it looks like that's been adjusted. So hopefully this is the right one. Saturday evening, the U.S. looks pretty clear, actually. A little bit down there in Louisiana, a little bit in Michigan, and a little bit up here in the northeast states. And a little bit over here in Nevada, Colorado, and Wyoming. And don't forget Northwest over here. Sunday overnight, looks like it thinks Florida's going to get some more. Louisiana, there's some of that Gulf moisture. Colorado, through the front of the mountains there and back towards Pagosa Springs. Wyoming, most western half of the state, and even up here into South Dakota, Nebraska. So let's check the next frame. And there's Sunday morning. Now it's thinking that the stuff is going to develop a little more. There's even a little bit of yellow there, but, you know, no reds. It's kind of interesting that basically no thunderstorms being predicted at all for this weekend, even after this changed. And there's Sunday at noon. Still no real thunderstorm threats, just some rain. South Dakota there. Southern Wisconsin gets a little more. Michigan, and the rest of that's in Canada. And down here it looks a lot better than it did before in the earlier model. Moving on to Sunday night. Western Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, some rain, and some of these northern states still getting a little bit, or northeast corner getting a little bit, and just spotty stuff down here, as opposed to what it looked like before, where it looked like it was going to be raining thick for 3 days. And the Four Corner states have cleared up. So all in all, it looks pretty good for this weekend. Just some rain. It doesn't look too serious, and no serious tornado, hail threats, no high echo tops. And here's another look at Friday night through Sunday night from the National Weather Service. And their model is really still showing those the Florida, basically the whole Gulf Coast getting rain, at least till Sunday. But that's an improvement too, because it used to show it all the way through Sunday night. But this one also shows more movement up from the southwest up towards Minnesota. More intense rainfall there, but still no. I'm not seeing any red, severe thunderstorm action. So all in all, looks like it could be a good weekend, with the exception of some rain. At least no serious threatening thunderstorms, tornadoes, hail, etc. So that's all I have for this weekend forecast. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend.